ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tech Showdown. My name is Kevin. This is my co-host Teddy, and today we're reviewing a laptop that we already reviewed a year ago, but we're doing the new model now. It is the ACER Nitro. So this will be quite interesting because the old Nitro, when I reviewed it, I wasn't very impressed by it, and I didn't actually recommend it because I just thought it was trying to do too many things and it just didn't really do a good job of it. So I was quite curious to try out the new one, this is the V17, to see how it would do. Now let's first talk about the exterior and the I/O. So it looks very similar to the old one with this, striped matte black finish on the top and on the bottom. It's pretty bland, it's a bit boring, really stock looking. The only good thing about it is that it doesn't tend to get as many fingerprints as some of the other designs do. But yeah, I don't know, I'm not really the hugest fan of it. Now they have retained the chrome on the top there, which I mean, yeah, that's cool to spice it up a little bit. I mean, it's okay, and on the inside of things, it's also a similar affair with the black like we had seen before. So yeah, not really much to say here on looks. I thought the other one was a bit bland. It depends on what type of person you are. I mean, I definitely don't think it looks bad, but I don't think it stands out to me as, a really good looking laptop. It just looks pretty basic. I mean, the keyboard does light up, and there is also another light up at the top there running along here. It lights up red too. Which I'll show you a little bit later, but yeah, looks wise, it's just okay in my book. Now let's talk about the I/O then. So you see up front, this has got the SD card slot. That's pretty normal. Now on the old Nitro, what they did is they didn't run anything on the left hand side and put everything on the right hand side, which I thought was quite strange. However, they've sort of gone away with that a tiny bit by adding a secure lock and a USB 2.0. So nice job there, ACER. You added two things, and of course it still has the optical drive. This is a Blu-ray drive on the left hand side. Looking around the back, you don't see anything at all, and then on the right hand side we're seeing it still has pretty much everything it has to offer. So you have the AC input, you have an Ethernet jack, HDMI port, that's quite cool, USB 3.0, USB Type-C, which I like to see, another USB 3.0, a headphone with spitter out, and a mic input. So yeah, pretty kind of what we expected with I/O, very similar to the old one. They have made a few improvements here and there, but for the most part it's pretty similar to what we saw before. So let's turn this guy on and then have a bit of a chat about the specs that it's packing. Here we have it all booted up for you guys. Screen brightness wise right now it's only on about half because I don't want it too bright or else it doesn't show up too good on the camera, so if it's looking a bit dim, that is the reason why. Well, let's jump in with the rest of the specs then, and we'll start with the model code on this one. So it's the VN7-792G-74S7 if you were curious. Now moving on, CPU wise, coming with an Intel i7-6700HQ. Seeing a lot of these nowadays. I really like this CPU. So that's a quad core with hyper-threading, 2.6 GHz base clock and a 3.5 GHz boost clock. So it's a nice Skylake CPU, really liking it. These tend to go really well in laptops, so a really good CPU there. Now that does mean it's going to be taking DDR4 memory, so it's taking 16 gigabytes, 2 times 8 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, which is another nice thing. DDR4, a very good improvement over DDR3. Now, storage-wise, it's running a single 128 gigabyte SSD, so that'll be good for your OS and a few programs, a few games. I'm not going to be able to put too much on there. However, it does have a 2 terabyte HDD, so that'll be good for all your mass storage and all your other bigger games that you won't be able to fit on the SSD. Now graphics wise, so it's coming with a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 960M with 4 gigabytes of GDDR5. So that is a Maxwell based GPU. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more powerful of a GPU with it, maybe like a like a 965M or a 970M. The 960M is still a good GPU, but it's a little bit on the lower side of things for something with the specs this guy's packing, but it still does a decent job. I just would have liked a little bit more there, Acer. Communications wise, 802.11ac, AC wireless, that's quite good there. Bluetooth 4.0. Weight wise coming in at 3 kilograms, and dimensions wise it's coming in at 423 millimeters wide, 293 millimeters deep or long, depending on how you look at it, and 25.4 millimeters tall. So size-wise, it actually does a pretty decent job. It's not too hefty as far as gaming laptops go. So let's move on to the screen, and this is something that the older Nitro I thought did a pretty decent job of, and this one, decent-ish job of, and this one also does a decent-ish job of, and they seem to have the same failings. So it's coming with a 17.3 inch Full HD or 1080p widescreen IPS display. So that means really good, you know, viewing angles, all that fun stuff. And when I was testing this out, because I can't remember what I've said in previous reviews, and I didn't rewatch my old video until after I'd done this review, just to see what similarities there was, or while I was doing this review I should say. But before that, even then I was trying it out and I was like, wow, this, it looks so dark even on full brightness. And that's what I said about the old one as well. I don't know what it is about these, they just tend to look, even on full brightness, they just tend to look a little bit dark. So yeah, that was about the only drawback. Aside from that, it did a pretty good job everywhere else. They're just a little bit funny when it comes to color reproduction, I find. Just a little bit off. But aside from that, it does a pretty decent job. Now sound-wise, so it has 4 speakers on the bottom. Now these sound pretty damn good actually when you have it raised up, like if you're sitting it on a desk or something like that. They sound pretty good, yeah, not tinny at all, not hollow, because it has a quite deep, nice sound to a full sound. So yeah, I really had no major complaints when it came to the sound. However, when that all disappears, when you put it on your lap, it gets so muffled, and this is one of the biggest failings of having speakers on the bottom, is they just get so muffled when you have them on. And it's also about the positioning of the speakers on this guy on the bottom. I don't think are that ideal really. I mean, they could have made them a little bit better. They're quite large, but I don't know. I just think they could have done a better job with that. And I always like to see speakers on the top, and I would have really liked it if they put the same speakers all on the top. It would have made all the difference in the world. So kind of a mixed bag when it comes to sound, but if you're just going to be using it on a desk, something like that, it'll do really, really well, and it's still really good in that instance. Now, keyboard wise, so the keyboard layout I like quite well. The way the function keys are laid out are really good. The rest of the keyboard is still pretty good. They still got the strange interconjoined with like the backslash, which I find a little bit funny. I mean, you could just make them separate, but whatever, Acer. So yeah, that's about the only strange thing. But to type on, yeah, really good. Nice key travel, feels good. They come up nicely. They have a nice, red to them, which I quite like. And yeah, it's just a decent keyboard. It's definitely not the best I've used. The SteelSeries ones tend to take that crown. They're just absolutely excellent. But these do a pretty decent job. I mean, you're going to be fine for typing up documents or whatever you might be doing on it, and for gaming they were just fine as well. So I have no real major complaints when it comes to the keyboard. Now the touchpad, so this was the biggest failing of the old Nitro. So the old Nitro probably had the worst, or one of the worst touchpads I ever used. The GT80 also comes to mind of having a really terrible touchpad. But this is probably its biggest improvement. The touchpad on this one is fantastic. So my problem with the old one was that my finger wouldn't slide properly very well on it, and it was just very hard to use. Like gestures were impossible, all that stuff. I wasn't a fan of it. Now it's much better on this one. They got the sensitivity nailed, clicking's really good, gestures work fine, and just to use, it was a very pleasant experience, and I have no complaints about it. It's just the biggest improvement on this entire laptop is the touchpad. It's actually usable now. So good job there, Asus, you actually made it usable. Now let's talk about the performance then. So we'll jump into the benchmarks and see how it does, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about how what kind of performance you're going to expect out of the Acer Nitro. So as you saw there, it is pretty decent in terms of performance, putting up good numbers in Tomb Raider and Shadow Mortal, which is, you know, quite a high requirement game, getting over 30 frames a second, and those were at 1080p on their Ultimate and Ultra presets respectively. So yeah, that's pretty good actually, a lot higher, a lot better than I thought that 960M was capable of. But if you're going to be wanting to play at above 60 frames a second, which most of you probably will, then you're probably going to have to, you might still be able to leave the settings on like an ultra or high, but you're definitely going to have to play with the filters and bring them right down to get your consistent 60 frames a second plus in those games. However, if you don't mind playing at just 30 FPS or above, then you should be fine leaving them on their ultra presets, and maybe you probably still need to bring the filters down, but maybe not as much to get a consistent 30 frames a second with minimums not dropping below that. So yeah, performance wise it does pretty good there. This should get you by for all your gaming needs, even on more modern games. But I still, yeah, I would have liked a little bit more here considering the price that these guys are coming in at. Which brings us now to heat and noise. So how does it do there? And CPU wise it got pretty toasty. So that 6700 HQ was going up to around 80 degrees in some of the tests. So that's getting pretty toasty there. It's not going to be thermal throttling at all. I didn't see any of that. So that's fine. However, that is getting a bit on the toasty side of things. The GPU did just fine. That 960M, the highest I think I saw was about 61 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so that's really good. So that's just fine. These Maxwell GPUs tend to run quite cool. But also the Skylake CPUs tend to, so it's a bit strange that this one runs a bit on the hotter side of things. However, that should be just fine. And on the noise side of things, it also did really good. So for just your casual use, browsing web and all that, it's going to be dead silent or very close to silent. So it does very good in terms of noise. Once you start gaming, it will ramp up a bit. This is to be expected. It's nothing excessive or too much, but I would say it's just about average in terms of its noise while you're gaming. It's kind of like what you would expect from a, you know, your average gaming laptop. So yeah, noise wise I'd say in casual use it does very good, and in gaming it just does about average. Now battery life. So this one's always difficult for me to kind of tell you guys about, because everyone has different setups. Everyone will run the screen at different brightness. Everyone will be doing different things on it. So I'll give you kind of like a general figure. So for gaming use, or you know, very heavy use type scenarios with the screen brightness up quite high and all that fun stuff, you're probably going to see about 2.5 hours to about 3.5 hours. Now if you're just doing more casual use, you know, browsing the web, all that sort of stuff, then and maybe not the settings that high, you'll probably see about 4.5 hours, and if you're going to be much more conservative than that, then you might see, you know, 4.5 hours plus, you know, going 5 hours plus if you're running the brightness down quite low, and depending on what you're doing. This is a gaming laptop at the end of the day, so you have to remember that, and you're obviously going to have the issue of battery life, which is pretty standard when it comes to gaming laptops. However, it still does a pretty good job in my book. That's a little better than average, so I would say, yeah, just pretty good for battery life on this guy. Don't expect too much. That's basically the best way I could put it. Now, software-wise, it's coming with Windows 10 as its default OS. You know, it's pretty good. I like Windows 10, and a lot of people out there do as well in the industry. So that's all really good. It's coming with a bunch of pre-installed software. Now, most of them aren't worth mentioning, but some that are is the ACER Care Center, which I actually find quite helpful. That's a good thing. So nice job there, ACER, for including that. The ACER Dust Defender. So this is a great idea, and I really like it. So basically, what that does is just reverses the fans to clean out all the dust, and it's, you know, that's a simple idea, and I know it's not a new idea, but it's a simple idea to implement, and I haven't really tested many gaming laptops that actually feature that as a default, you know, program that it comes with. So that's really cool as an application. It also comes with a Dolby audio, which lets you set different sound presets, which is really helpful as well if you set it to the movie preset or music or gaming or whatever you like, and it works quite nicely too, so I was really a big fan of that. So that was a really good inclusion too. Which brings us now to the conclusion of this Acer Nitro, the V17, the new model. So I would say it's a big improvement over the old model. Now the older one I tested was the smaller one, so the V15 is your smaller 15-inch one and the V17 is the 17-inch one. You could say maybe it's not comparing the exact same, but I mean they're similar enough. So I can say without a shadow of doubt this is a big improvement over the old model. I really do like it. It's trying to do the same thing as the old one, is trying to sort of be a really good all-rounder, but this one pulls it off much better than the old one. It actually does a really solid job in all the areas instead of just doing like an okay job in all the areas. So that was really good as well. I didn't really have any major complaints with it, only just minor complaints with, you know, specific things, you know, specific failings that are somewhat similar to ones that it previously had. So there's still a few bugs for Acer to, you know, fix for the next model after this one. However, they have done a very good job, and I do recommend this one. If I was going to give it a rating out of 10, it'd probably be a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. It does a really good job, and I have, you know, no major complaints with it. So good job there, Acer. This is a really good, all-round, solid gaming laptop for someone that just wants a good all-rounder. Now, I thank you all for watching this video. Please subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already, and like the video. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.